Thanks for watching Endgame Economics. If you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe. It's completely free for you, and it helps us continue making more videos like this.
Look at Minneapolis by the numbers. You will find high median incomes and a universally celebrated park system, and a quality of life that consistently lands it at the top of national livability rankings. The local economy runs on an astonishing density of quiet corporate power. For a metro area of its size, the Twin Cities hold the highest concentration of Fortune 500 headquarters per capita in the entire country, generating immense, stable wealth. Yet this exact same city holds some of the widest racial disparities in the United States. These two facts do not cancel each other out. The statistical paradise and the severe inequality are operating on the exact same cultural machinery, just viewed from different angles. The disconnect is so extreme that economist Samuel Myers Jr. gave it a formal name, the Minnesota Paradox. This chart ranks all 50 U.S. states by the income gap between Black and white residents. Minnesota sits at the absolute bottom. The disparity continues in real estate. Nearly 77% of white households own homes, compared to just 25% of Black households. To understand how a progressive, well-meaning city produces economic gaps this devastating, we have to look past the policy and dissect the psychology of its most famous export, Minnesota Nice. The local mindset originates in the 1880s with the city's founding industry, the slow, unglamorous process of flour milling. Milling requires a specific temperament. You take a raw grain and patiently grind it down into something useful. It rewards slow, steady process and actively discourages flashy overnight risks. The people who arrived to work those mills imported a highly compatible social code. The early Scandinavian and German settlers came from cultures that heavily prioritized social guardedness, operating with an extremely high barrier to entry for outsiders. When you mix a process-driven industry with a guarded demographic, you permanently bake a modest, heads-down, conflict-avoidant temperament deep into the city's identity. Then, the environment enforces those rules. For 5 months of the year, the region endures a brutal, isolating winter, where the sun can vanish after just 9 hours of daylight. Seasonal depression is a measurable, endemic reality here. But the cultural response is a quiet stoicism, turning the silent endurance of extreme cold into a point of local pride. This climate is the true architect of Minnesota Nice. When winter is actively trying to kill you, open communal conflict is dangerous. Displeasure has to find a side door, turning subtle, passive aggression into a necessary survival mechanism. But there is a glaring flaw in this social technology. When your community's highest moral imperative is to never make a scene, you become uniquely incapable of confronting systemic, uncomfortable truths. The city has a long history of literally burying its ugly realities. The famous, pristine lakes that define the city's image are largely artificial, engineered by dredging over unappealing swamps to create a perfectly managed surface. That same instinct for burial was applied to people. After World War II, historic Black neighborhoods were quietly destroyed to clear a path for federal highway construction. This map tracks the historical city grid, showing how redlining and racial covenants structurally excluded Black residents from building generational wealth in those highly valued neighborhoods, all while the broader culture insisted that the only race was the human race. Minneapolis developed a brand of racism where the surface remains polite and accommodating. It is a beautiful, managed exterior, explicitly designed to keep you from looking at the engineered inequality underneath. A culture defined by intense emotional repression will always require a release valve. Historically, Minneapolis found that escape through the loud, flamboyant artistry of the Minneapolis sound. But art can only process so much. When dealing with deep intergenerational trauma and systemic exclusion, release valves eventually fail. The unaddressed pain reaches a boiling point. That pressure broke in May of 2020 with the police murder of George Floyd. The event detonated the largest protest movement in modern American history, erupting in the exact city that had spent a century perfecting the art of not looking. Refusing to name your discomfort doesn't eliminate it. It simply buries the pressure deeper until the system gives out and it explodes all at once. Today, the psychology of the city is undergoing a new stress test in places like Cedar Riverside. Centered around Riverside Plaza, this neighborhood is home to the nation's largest Somali diaspora. The Somali community is running the classic Minnesotan playbook, working relentlessly, opening businesses, and building tight-knit community institutions from the ground up. But recent, highly publicized fraud scandals tied to a small fraction of the community have forced the city into a deeply uncomfortable public debate about identity, belonging, and who counts as a Minnesotan. Minneapolis is currently learning that politeness is not a substitute for justice. Surviving the future means abandoning the comfort of the perfect surface and looking directly at the messy swamp beneath the lake.